Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal EMac coming to you for some NBA action Tuesday, March 3rd. Special guest making his debut on the Early Bird Podcast. We have one Adam Pfeifer. Adam, how are you doing?
EMac, I'm good. I happy to be here. I've been doing stuff for Osmo for since the start of football season. Been doing basketball now too. It's been very fun, and I always love doing podcasts. And like I told you before we got on, this will be one of two podcasts for me tonight. So it's like I'm on the front end of a back to back.
There you go. There you go. Well, hopefully this is a nice little warm up. Gets everything taken care of. Get to see some of the early look here. We of course are sponsored by SuperDraft. We'll talk about them a little bit here. But if you guys have not yet signed up, if you use the promo code AWESOME when you sign up and make your first deposit, if it's $100, they will immediately give you $20 in super cash, which is available for use into any contest that they have. That'll come out of your account first. It's relatively straightforward. Speaking of straightforward, that's exactly the opposite of what the NBA is these days. So many injuries, so many uncertainties. Teams starting to solidify where they are in the standings. So those that are in good spots are resting stars when they are able to, as we've seen with Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. We got other guys that are dinged up. We have some guys that have been playing hefty minutes, like Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine, are now getting that's catching up to them. They're out, but we're gonna go game by game. Is what we've started doing here since there's always so many question marks. We'll hit on the high notes, tell you if there's anything to watch for. But again, things will be turned on its ear before we get to tip off. And this is just your first look. It'll give you an idea. But what it'll do is it'll help you understand how to read a slate and figure out what is going on. The variables will change for whatever the one we're playing ends up being for Tuesday night. But this will at least give everybody a chance to kind of see at a sneak peek here with how things go. So the first one we're going to talk about here is, let me get it up. It is San Antonio at Charlotte. San Antonio is on a back-to-back here. We let's see, what do we have with LaMarcus Aldridge? LaMarcus Aldridge will most all but assuredly be out till right before the weekend, it looks like. With regards to the Charlotte Hornets, they've got a doubtful Devonte Graham. He's missed a game dealing with a sore ankle, which is an issue. And then we got to see a surprise starter, I guess. Drew Eubanks started on Monday nights for Jakob Pertl, who was out. And let's see, Rudy Gay, I think, was the other guy that got into the starting lineup. So a lot of moving parts here. Slow-paced game. Anything standing out for you at first blush here? This is the first of, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, the Spurs, like we're recording this, relatively early on Monday night, so we don't really have we like you said, we had the Spurs starting lineup. We don't know exactly how these guys are being utilized, but like you said, it was Trey Lyles starting at the four and Ebanks starting at the five. Like I would like the matchup for these guys if we can feel safe about them. Lyles is up to over 5K. Like the Hornets have been one of the worst interior defenses in basketball. They have been a bottom five post defense. So with no Aldridge and no Pirtle, we already know they're out. Like these guys make sense. Lyles had to play 40 minutes the other night. The Spurs actually up to a 10-0 early start against the Pacers right now. But if this game stays competitive with the Pacers having two bigs, I'm sure he'll have to play a lot again. And then DeRozan I like a lot. The price really hasn't moved. We know the usage rate's pushing 30% without Aldridge on the floor. And this is just a much better matchup than the Pacers. I mean, Charlotte, no rim protection for DeRozan, who's top five in drives per game. They also allow the fifth highest field goal percentage to the mid range this year, which is where DeRozan continues to kind of make his living. So those guys definitely stand out. And then I hate playing the point guards from the Spurs, but DeJounte Murray is still fairly priced as a mid range option. He would be the one I'd play, and he does get a slight usage bump with these guys off the floor. So I'm definitely going to be paying attention to see the usage and the involvement of Lyles, Rudy Gay, and Ebanks tonight.
Yeah, that'll be the interesting one. Murray, I'm just calling it up here. He has been playing on the back-to-backs, which is something he didn't do for the first couple months of the season after missing nearly the entirety of last year. I just wanted to see. Let's see. He's done 4 back-to-backs so far, playing 24 and a half minutes per game. That's right about in line with what he generally does.
Right.
If things are going well, and Pop likes the matchup, then he gets kind of the seesaw, the teeter totter, if you will, leans towards him instead of White. On the other side, it's similarly we see with Bryn Forbes and with Patty Mills, kind of direct backups for each other. So just keep an eye on that, but he should be good to go in this one. Moving, nothing really from Charlotte. They're just kind of without Graham playing, their whole lineup is going to more or less fall apart. They've got issues in the front court. Nobody really exciting in there. At best, they are lineup filler. The next one we have is Brooklyn at Boston. We are expected to see Kemba Walker return from his knee injury. I don't has he hasn't played since the break, has he? No,
He
he has
hasn't
not. So,
played.
so
Yeah.
he missed 5 games after playing all those minutes in the All-Star game. Oops, perhaps that was not the savviest
Yeah. No kidding.
things to do, but he should be back. However, we have Jason Tatum, who's dealing with flu-like symptoms, so he could be out. You have Marcus Smart also has whatever bug that Tatum has, so that's been going around the locker room there in Boston. So those guys are questionable, and then the only person questionable here for the Nets is Garrett Temple, and he's got a dinged up shoulder. This one, a lot changes based upon is Jason Tatum in or out. If he's in, when he's just dealing with routine illness, he's a fine play. If he's out, then of course that bumps up Jaylen Brown. It's kind of the same thing if Marcus Smart is out, Brown gets the boost, and or Tatum, because it's their sixth man's not there. Kemba coming in, I wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't play more than 20 minutes. What do you want to do with these uncertain Celtics here?
Yeah, I think there was a report actually that Kemba's like assuredly going to be limited if he is active. So that's annoying because like if you look at his numbers with, say you assume Tatum and Smart both sit, which isn't the safest assumption, but I think Tatum has practiced Monday, so it's very possible. Like the numbers are great, 34% usage, 1.4 fantasy points per minute. But the problem is if he's going to be limited, you don't feel great about that at 7,400 or 7,300 on DraftKings. Like Gordon Hayward, we've seen him see upticks in ball handling duties and assist rate with Kemba and Tatum off the floor. He would be interesting to me if Tatum sits and Kemba's active. Like Smart would still be in play if he's 7,300 too though. Like they're both 7,300. That's a little scary for me. Brooklyn is a really good matchup for point guards, especially out of the pick and roll, which would be Kemba's role here. But again, I don't know if he can go there if he's going to play, 20, 21, 22 minutes tops. So it's tough right now to break this Boston team down. Like I've kind of always liked using Jaylen Brown this year. I think he's been like Tatum's been the storyline as of late, but Jaylen Brown's just been really solid all year. He's been one of the best spot up shooters in the league this season. Um, he would obviously be probably the safest play for me if these guys are all out, and like even if they're in, like you can still use a $7,100 Jaylen Brown. But yeah, like you said, like Tatum's the big news because he's been obviously their best player. He's been one of the best players in basketball over the last month or so. Um, and Kemba being limited is throwing a wrench in everything because I would have loved him if these guys were out, but I don't think he plays more than 22 minutes.
Yeah, I was looking to see if we found any definitive news. They just said he'll be on some sort of limit. The number that popped in my mind was 20 to 22. I had thought I'd seen some report like that said 18 to 20, but who knows? There are so many things flying fast and furious these days. On the other side, Spencer Dinwiddie seems to have recovered a little bit and regained some of the usage and shot attempts that had been ceded to Karis LeVert. LeVert has taken 17 shots each of his last 2 games, but that's down from closer to 20. A few more have gone towards Dinwiddie. He had a really good game this weekend against Atlanta, and then another one against Miami. 25 points, 12 assists against Miami, 24 points, 13 assists against Atlanta. They're really the two I want to look for. I'm less thrilled with with any of the front court. It'll be interesting to see. We'll do the live before lock on Tuesday. That'll be with Fast Eddie Fear. He usually has a good read on what's going to happen between DeAndre Jordan and Jared Allen. I want to hear what he has to say rather than kind of guess. But those are kind of we'll combine the centers into one player. There's only three players I'm interested in here for Brooklyn. Boston, tougher matchup. Do you have any favorites from this game?
Not really. Brooklyn's been a team that, like, when they're priced fairly or accordingly, like, you can go to Dinwiddie and LeVert. LeVert's had, like, massive usage since he's re-entered the starting lineup a couple weeks ago. I think it was against, like, Phoenix, where he entered the starting lineup and went nuts. I don't love the price. Like, I'd rather play Dinwiddie, who just, you kind of know what you're going to get. Like, he's going to flirt with double-digit assists. If he's more aggressive in a game like he's been the last couple, you're going to get a good chance of 20 points. And, like, yeah, like, I rarely go to these Brooklyn bigs when they're all healthy. And, like, Boston's a team that you can target post up players against, but these two don't really post up a lot. Like, it's not how their offense works. So, yeah. And then the wings I rarely target, like Torian Prince. You mentioned Garrett Temple's questionable. Torian Prince, the Joe Harris, these guys that they just have no usage on this team.
All right, let's move on to the next one. This will be a fun one. Clippers versus OKC. A lot of players played for their opposite teams. We, of course, have Paul George, now with the Clippers, formerly of the Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the same boat. Chris Paul, formerly of the Clippers, and, of course, Houston. Now he is with the Thunder. You've got some interesting undercurrents going on there. It looks like everybody should be healthy. I'm looking, Danilo Gallinari should be back. He missed a game this weekend with an ankle issue, but I think everybody's good to go. This one might have a little bit of a playoff edge to it. What do you take the lead on this one, Adam?
Yeah, this game seems like it's potentially like one of those games where it's really good for real life, but it's kind of tricky for fantasy, especially if Gallinari returns. Like, I like the $9,200 price tag on Kawhi Leonard. The matchup isn't great. Like, OKC's been a really strong defense this year, but where they do struggle is they give up a lot of points off isolation. And Kawhi is, I think, seventh in the league in isolation points per game. I think $9,200 is really nice for him. Um, Paul George is also really affordable, but my goodness, he's been shooting the ball a little bit better lately. But, you know, still over the last 10 games, he's been really struggling as a whole shooting the basketball. But maybe you get potential revenge narrative. Again, the price tag is really nice on a lot of these guys. Um, that's my main takeaway from this game. Like, everybody's priced really, really fairly, or better, right? I mean, Lou Williams is under 6K. He's been a little bit more up and down lately. Like, Schroeder would be interesting if Gallinari's out, because he leads a team with a 31% usage rate with Gallinari off the floor, and he still comes off the bench, but he still plays starter minutes. Um, the bigs are not the greatest for me. Like, Steven Adams, his minutes can be up and down. Obviously, being blown out and being on the second of back-to-back limited him to 17, but you're not going to get 30 to 32 minutes from him most likely, but 28, 29 seems about right. These teams are really tough for me when they're all healthy. And like you said, unless Gallinari sits, that we're going to have pretty much full strength, not only just two good teams, but two good defensive teams.
Yep, over their last 15 games, the Clippers are 7th, the Thunder are 12th. For perspective, this is defensive efficiency. So the Milwaukee Bucks allow 100.6 points per 100 possessions. The Minnesota Timberwolves are the worst. They allow 117 points per 100 possessions. So that means basically they allow 17% more scoring than the Bucks do. The Bucks are 6 points ahead of every other team. So proportionally, the Clippers are still in the upper third of the league, and they're better than average by about, average is probably about 113, 114 points per 100. So they're both these teams are a little bit better. They do play the deliberate style. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because Oklahoma City has been challenging teams to kind of match them when they run their 3-guard lineup. And the one team that could definitely do that is going to be the Clippers here, because they have such versatile guys with Kawhi and with Paul George, let alone Montrezl Harrell and etc. So this will be an interesting game. Moving on to our next one here, we have I should have said that Clippers are favored on the road by 3, 226 over under. That's one of the games we do have the over under for. The next one, Oh boy, Minnesota at New Orleans. Do you want to guess at the over/under? Have you seen it yet?
I haven't. It's
Whatever
gotta
you're
be
thinking, go higher.
right. First, like, I literally looked this game when I was looking at the slate initially, and I don't like 242.
247 and a half.
Jeez.
I don't remember seeing one quite this high. And we had the Atlanta and Memphis was at 241 today. The Wizards have had a few against Atlanta and a couple other teams where they've been up there. Minnesota was one of them. But oh my goodness, this is crazy. So when I said Minnesota had the worst defense, yikes, that is coming to fruition here. We had New Orleans play Sunday night against the Lakers, but let me just see. They should have all of their key players should be good to go. Kenrich Williams still not in the plans, but what do you want to do with Minnesota? I think this is an island game for them. Do we get to see D'Angelo Russell, or are we're gonna have a rest day for him?
I mean, I imagine he plays. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like. I mean, D'Angelo Russell has, I think I was looking at 29% usage rate since Karl-Anthony Towns went down with the wrist injury. So that's pretty solid usage rate. Obviously, nobody else on that team
Oh,
really
this
demands
is
the
the front
ball.
end of a back-to-back and the start of 3 and 4.
Oh boy.
But I would think he would. Well, who knows? We'll pretend that he is, or we will analyze this as if he is going to be playing.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, you kind of know where to go, right?
Yep.
You pivot to Jordan McLaughlin if you want, and
Call it a day.
yeah, and then you can spend up elsewhere. So because Russell's 9K now, which I wouldn't love in like your average matchup, but my goodness, I mean, like the Pelicans have solid defensive guards, but the pace of play in this game, the style of play in this game, is just going to be so conducive to fantasy points that you have to have Russell on your radar, assuming he's in. Um, like then it gets like Malik Beasley's been fantastic this year, or I guess I should say since joining the Timberwolves. His usage rate's kind of been hovering right around D'Angelo Russell's quietly. Like he's been really, really high up there in usage since joining the team. 6K for him, I'd have interest. Um, those are the two that definitely stand out the most to me. Like Hernan Gomez, 5,500. He's been playing really solidified minutes. James Johnson, meanwhile, not so much. Like I guess they've been solidified. They just haven't been as high end as Hernan Gomez's have been.
Let's see. Yeah, those are kind of the only ones that are really popping out there. Beasley is 55 on FanDuel. That is a steal. 21 on Yahoo. I'm ambivalent there. Nas Reed, if he can stay out of foul trouble against Zion and Derek Favors, he could have a moment. He's 52 on DK, 46 on FanDuel, 17 a bit pricey there on Yahoo. But those are kind of the guys that you want to go to. And as Adam said, if for whatever reason D'Angelo Russell is out, then, and again, that's just speculation. Their next 3 games are at home. They actually play New Orleans at home this weekend as well. But those would be the guys we'd look for. On the other side, you got Zion Williamson coming in at 7,700 on DK, 82 on FanDuel, 36 on Yahoo. I think those are all favorable. He's got that 1.55 multiplier over there on SuperDraft. You have Brandon Ingram also carrying that same 1.55 multiplier on SuperDraft. 1.35. I might need glasses. We'll see. But those are guys that are popping out. Do you like anybody beyond the starting 5 for the Pellies? And amongst the starting 5, you want to give a few tidbits out?
Yeah, I definitely love Zion here. He's so good. Like he's just so good. Like I think I was reading a stat the other day that a Zion post up has been like one of the most efficient plays in basketball this year. Like it's been up there with the Luka Doncic isolation, the James Harden isolation. Like it's been that ridiculous for like he's just unstoppable when he gets to the rim, which he pretty much does at will. Um, he's I think he's still fairly priced on DraftKings where what is he, 7,800. 4.5 post up points per game is tied with Karl-Anthony Towns for 5th in the league. So they've been posting him up a lot. The Timberwolves give up the 4th most points per possession or 3rd most points per possession to the post, and the second highest field goal percentage. So it's a really good matchup. We know their defense is bad when Towns is active. It's probably worse when Towns is active, but still really bad when he's inactive. Now Gorgie Jang is there. He was the one guy kind of saving grace for their defense, at least in the interior. He's been gone for a while, so there's just nobody that can slow Zion down here. And again, in a fast-paced game, that's where you want Zion Williamson. I've struggled with Brandon Ingram since Zion's made his debut because the usage has been down a little bit. He's had a couple ceiling games, but the ceiling games have been few and far between since Zion's been, or compared to when Zion was, still hurt. I think if I'm going to go to a starter not named Zion here, it's probably going to be Lonzo Ball. 7,300 against a team that allows, I think, the most points per game and like fifth most assists per game to point guards. And Lonzo, I think in the month of February was top 5 in the league in touches per game, right there with LeBron and um, Luca and those guys. So I like Lonzo a lot here, as well as Zion. You can kind of correlate them because they have been running. They're pretty much Zion's getting the ball out of the pick and roll or in the post, and Zion's not a guy who's going to take 5-6 dribbles and do a shimmy fake or a pump fake and go up. Like he's going to get the ball in the post, power through you and get a dunk. So I think you can get a lot of assists from Zion to from Lonzo to Zion Williamson. So those are my two favorite. Redick is out. I don't know if that does enough for Josh Hart, who's 4,500. Um, the thing I like about Josh Hart is he gets so many rebounds for a wing, which is nice. I mean, Ingram's definitely in play. Like, there's really nobody that's not in play from this team, in my opinion, when you look at the game environment. But if I had to rank them, it would definitely be Zion and Lonzo Ball 1 and 2.
All right, heading on to Golden State at Denver. We actually do have an over-under in this one. 15 is the spread. That is for Denver. It is
I thought you were going to say 15 is the over-under. I was like, whoa.
216 and a half is the over-under. So, yikes. That makes it a little tough to get excited about this one. We should see Nikola Jokic having his way. Draymond Green questionable with a knee injury. He's missed the last couple games. We know that Steph Curry is still out. He had talked about a potential targeted return date on Sunday against the Wizards. That did not come to fruition, but I was just reading a report. He had a successful practice with the G League affiliate on Monday. He will probably be back in the next week or two. They have not put a specific date on that. Paul Millsap, questionable. He was out for the last game dealing with an ankle issue. If he's out, that makes Jeremy Grant very intriguing. And then Kai Bowman still out with his ankle issue as well. That really has not moved the needle there for Denver, for Golden State. Starting off here with Denver, the interesting thing about Jokic is he really could put up a triple-double in 30 minutes, but if it's, a 15-10-10 triple-double, is that going to get us where we need to be when he's 94 on DK, 10,300 on FanDuel, and 46 on Yahoo?
Right. I think it's this game is in Denver, right? Yeah,
Correct.
That sucks. Man, one of my favorite things to do in DFS is to play Jokic and Jamal Murray together in spots where they're facing bad teams at defending handoffs, because that's all Denver does. It's that triple handoff with Jokic and Jamal Murray at the top of the key. The fact that this game has a relatively low total and it's the Warriors who are just, obviously not equipped to hang around teams right now, it does scare me. But it's not like Jokic is egregiously priced, and Jamal Murray I think is a little bit underpriced at 6,700. So I do like that stack in tournaments, but more so I like Murray as a singular play. 6,700 is really, really cheap for him. He's been really strong since returning from his ankle injury. And the Warriors, they give up the most points per possession to the handoff this year. They give up the highest field goal percentage off handoffs at 49.2%. And Jamal Murray is fourth in the league in points per game off handoffs, 15% frequency rate. Like the correlation between Jokic and Murray getting assists to each other and scoring off that play type in this game, I think is really, really strong. So I have a lot of interest in Jamal Murray here, and I will pair him with Jokic in tournaments and hope, Andrew Wiggins and these guys can keep this game competitive. Other than that, though, I mean, yeah, if Paul Millsap's out, Jeremy Grant 5K against a team that really doesn't have a lot of rim protection, isn't the greatest rebounding team, I could see him having a really solid game at 5K. That's kind of it for me. Like, Will Barton's fine at 5,600, but he's definitely not a must. Yeah, Jamal Murray, I circled him when I looked at the slate because I wrote about this spot for him before, looking at the correlation, and I think he's a little bit underpriced at 6.7.
All right, a good little tip there to file away for this game and future games when that correct matchup comes up for them. On the other side here, no one overly exciting for Golden State. If they continue to have most of their people hurt. They've basically been playing a 12-man, or pardon me, an 8-man rotation. But we'll have to see. Jordan Poole probably should still be good to go. So that's going to leave them with Poole, Wiggins, Marquise Chris, Damian Lee, Draymond, potentially Pascal, and then entering the picture, depending on Draymond being out, would be Juan Toscano Anderson, potentially Kevon Looney, maybe Dragon Bender, etc. But those guys are right now, they're kind of placeholder value at best. The matchup against Denver, not the worst one. They have been slipping a little bit on defense with all of their many injuries to their guys, especially Millsap, Gary Harris to a lesser extent, but playing at altitude with a team that really doesn't have an offensive engine against a team that has a good scheme on defense doesn't bode well.
Yeah, if I had to pick one, it'd be Eric Pascal. If Draymond's out, he's going to play, if the game's somewhat competitive, he'll play up to 33 minutes, and he's kind of fine at 5,300. But yeah, nobody stands out. And I don't really play Andrew Wiggins, so he's not on my radar in this spot.
Yep. Let's see here. Toronto at Phoenix. We do not have the over-under here. We do know that Marc Gasol is going to be out again. Fred VanVleet, questionable. Serge Ibaka, questionable. Those guys have each missed a couple games. But it's Phoenix. This would be a nice time to give them a chance to get healthy again. So we'll see. Assuming those guys are out, does that put Norm Powell in the picture for you? Perhaps Kyle Lowry doing a lot of the heavy lifting, which he's happy to defer when everybody's healthy, but when everybody's gone, he takes a lot on his shoulders. And then you've got Pascal Siakam. I like those guys if VanVleet and Ibaka are out, just because they'll have to get the usage, the points, the production. If everybody's in, I don't know who I want from Toronto. What is your general read on that in our two different scenarios?
Well, I mean, you obviously just have to pencil in OG Anunoby for 7 steals, right?
Oh, God, I forgot about the OG Anunoby night. Yeah.
It was absolutely insane. Like, I literally looked at it because I was preparing for the Monday slate, and I looked, I was like, oh, OG had 40 fantasy points. It was a good game. And I was like, wait, it's halftime. Absolutely absurd. But yeah, so I don't know if anybody knows, but I've been team Pascal Siakam for a while now. Like, that's my guy. But I do understand that, if this team is healthy, it's less appealing to play him at his price tag, which I think 8,700 is probably priced at his ceiling. He's a good fantasy producer, but he's not going to give you 60 fantasy points very often. He'll give you 40 to 50. But if Ibaka and VanVleet are out, I mean, you're looking at a 31% usage rate, nearly 1.3 fantasy points per minute, and a 22% rebounding rate against a bad Phoenix defense and a potential pace up spot. I do like Kyle Lowry a lot too. 28% usage with those guys off the floor. Already a guy, and a 23% assist rate as well. Already a guy who's 10th in the NBA in touches per game. VanVleet was quietly up there too, or is quietly up there. So him being out is really big for Kyle Lowry, as he'll just handle the ball more. 8,100 for him would be viable if VanVleet's out. I don't need both those guys to be out to go to Kyle Lowry. If just VanVleet's out, I'd still be okay with him there. And I guess, do you have any interest in Rondae Hollis-Jefferson if Ibaka's out? Because we know there's no Marc Gasol, and
yeah, if those guys are out, it would be Rondae Hollis-Jefferson for me over Chris Boucher.
Right, he'd have to play anywhere between 25 and 28 minutes, and just Chris Boucher's he had the 4 fouls last game, which didn't help, but it's still been inconsistent minutes for him when these guys have been out. And let's be honest. I mean, Toronto, as good as they've been this year, they've had multiple guys out pretty much all year. So there's been opportunities for Chris Boucher to play big minutes, and it just hasn't really happened. So, do you have any interest in Ibaka if he does play? 6,100 is really affordable.
I'm just gonna say no. I don't think the game will stay close enough. Now we never know what's gonna happen. I mean, right now the Knicks are fighting tooth and nail against Houston. And that would be one where you thought that they would probably, have a decent chance of getting their ass kicked. So the NBA, it's a game of runs. How teams can come back. What's going on? Who's on the court when it's happening? It's hard to know. This just feels to me like a spot where With that many teams on the slate, I don't really want to go to Ibaka. If you're doing mass multi-entry, sure, no problem. If you're playing some of the sub slates, absolutely, you want to look at him because there's less options. But on the full main slate, not so much for me. Just because of this particular matchup and his health status, and obviously Toronto having the bigger picture in mind in defending their title.
No, absolutely.
All right, let's head on over here. Oh, I guess we should talk about Phoenix. So Phoenix had kind of a lackluster showing in their last outing. That was their 6th game in 9 days. Cut them a little slack for that one. So we can go back to Devin Booker, we can go back to DeAndre Ayton. I don't mind Ricky Rubio. Toronto, solid defense across the board. These guys are just they're okay, but they're gonna do. They're almost assuredly to play in the mid to upper 30s for minutes, at least for Booker and Ayton, and that is worth having even in a tougher matchup for them, in my opinion. Do you like any of the Suns at all?
They're not going to be priorities for me, but I do agree. Devin Booker at 8,300 is really appealing. Like I've played him a lot this year. I think he, again, coming off a terrible game against Golden State, where, like you said, they were just kind of had a lot of games and a lot of they were playing a lot. So 8,300 is perfectly fine for me. The matchup isn't great, but this is a guy who's going to see more usage with Kelly Oubre out. Aiton is he would be more interesting if Ibaka sat, but he's just been so good as of late. Playing big minutes, even with Aaron Baines back in the lineup. I think those two are the only ones that really stand out. Like, you could, if we don't get a ton of value on the slate and you're looking at a mid-range play, like Mikal Bridges has been playing massive minutes, 39, 38, and 38 the last 3 with Kelly Oubre out. But he's been like, he's such a low usage player that it's still not really exciting. Like, the only spot where Toronto really struggles defensively is to spot up shooters, and Kelly Oubre was their main spot up shooter, so they don't really have a lot of guys that spot up on this team.
Dario Saric, price is coming up.
Yeah, that's the other problem. Like, I would have had interest, but 5K.
5K on DK. Yeah, he hasn't cracked 30 fantasy points. I did some stat. I think he had topped. My arbitrary cutoff was this season he had topped 26 fantasy points like 5 times. That was
impressive.
And that was in something like 40 or so games because he missed a chunk where he was injured here and there, and he had started, we'll say about half of them. It's just like, where's the upside?
Yeah, just on an 8-game slate against a tough Toronto defense, I'll gladly pass.
All right, 2 to go here. Washington at Sacramento. Wizards doing their West Coast swing. Sacktown favored by 5.5. We have a 233. Yep, 233 over under here. Let's see. De'Aaron Fox has been playing through an abdominal or a core issue, but he was reasonably good in 32 minutes against Detroit. He had 38 fantasy points, 23 points, 7 assists, 3 boards, and a block. So I guess, great matchup here. We got to look at him. You've got Bielitsa, who is interesting in this matchup. The Wizards, not that great on defense, not that great at rebounding. He can do both of those just fine, especially as kind of their stretch 5, which is mostly what the Wizards have. Harry Giles makes me nervous because his minutes are and his knee issues, etc., make it hard to trust. Plus, the price has been coming up, and he's been playing darn near perfectly when he's been out there. For me, that's late slate only. And then Bradley Beal, I know we like to joke and I say, oh, he doesn't quite have the upside. This is a pretty good matchup for him, but the earth-shattering upside, I don't know that it's there. 55 fantasy points. Is that get it done for us at 10,400? What do you want to do with this game? Because I think this is where I think we would be remiss if we weren't having probably 2 players from this game on our lineups.
Yeah, I definitely want to play some De'Aaron Fox. He's 8K now, but the matchup is so good. We know Washington, just one of the worst, if not the worst, defensive team in basketball. They also give up a ton of production to, like, players shooting from, like, the free throw line, which is where De'Aaron Fox does a lot of his damage. They get the highest field goal percentage there, but Fox, he still has, like, a really high usage rate with those 2 bigs, Rashawn Holmes and Marvin Bagley, who've missed so much time off the floor. They're not coming back anytime soon. So Fox is my favorite player from this game. Like, if you want to stack it, like you can get a lot of potential if you're going with Fox and running it back with Beal. Beal's very expensive, but he is locked into 25 shot attempts. He's still getting the assists pretty much each game too, despite taking 25 to 30 shots a game, which is nice. The Kings have struggled against scoring wings for a couple years now, so definitely like him. I like the Bielitsa call because, like you pointed out perfectly, like this is a spot where they can feel comfortable running him out at the 5 a lot because the Wizards are limiting Thomas Bryant's minutes still, and then they're running guys who like Rui Hachimura and Mo Wagner. Like they don't have many, if any, traditional centers right now. So this could be a spot where Bielitsa can play a lot of minutes at the 5 at 6K. I like him too. And then have fun with Buddy Hield and Bogdanovich, because if Buddy Hield gets hot, he's going to play 33 minutes and probably break the slate, which he has the potential to do against this awful team. And 5,500 is cheap enough to definitely take a shot on him in tournaments, especially in a game environment like this.
They just hate him in Sacramento.
Yeah, he liked the tweet that had a rumor of Al Horford getting traded next year to the Kings in exchange for Buddy Hield. So maybe he wants to go to the Sixers. But then again, everybody's linked to the Sixers nowadays.
Yeah, well, it may not all be peaches and cream over there.
They also don't need Buddy Hield when they have Shake Milton, apparently.
Yeah, he what was that, career high? I almost was waiting to see if I saw somebody say career high at any level that he had, but yeah, he had a fine showing there on Sunday afternoon. If you were playing that 2-game slate. Let's see. Oh, Davis Bertans is the other guy I do want to mention for Washington. He is reasonably priced, should get to jack up a bunch of threes. He probably won't go 8 for 10 from 3-point range like he did against the Warriors, but there is some upside there, and his price is reasonable. The safety, not so much.
Would you rather play him or Rui? They're pretty much the same price.
Bertans has more upside. Rui doesn't.
Especially on
DraftKings, blocks and rebounds, and Bertans is taking 2/3 of his shots from behind the arc. So
yeah, especially on DraftKings, because you get the bonus for threes, and he also, like, Bertans he's not obviously Brook Lopez or anything, but he gets a couple blocks every now and then. Like he's averaging just under a block per game, which helps too.
All right, last game of the night. You mentioned the Philadelphia. I'm assuming they're your favorite team.
No, I've been a Cavs fan for a long time.
Oh, okay.
So. And they're terrible, obviously, this year, but it warms my heart to see Colin Sexton playing pretty well, because he took a lot of flack, but he's still terrible defensively. But he's been scoring the ball insanely efficiently this year, and he's doing it again tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
All right. So reminder for you guys: if you use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, you can get 50% off any 1 week package at Osmo. Check that out. It's definitely a way to dip your toe in the water. You can see the good stuff behind the paywall. Adam contributes along with Adam Scher to the deep dive article series. We of course have ownership projections, player projections for darn near every sport now. We do have player projections for every sport, but we've got XFL ownership, NHL, of course NBA. It's a lot of fun, and when I say we, collectively, it's all Alex Baker. Collectively, we have been putting out a boom bust tool, which shows the top stacking NHL lines of the day, or who has the highest, what percentage chance someone has to be a top two line on the day. And those have been very, very helpful for hockey. So just want to throw that out there. You guys can check that stuff out. Promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, gets you 50% off any 1 week package. So obviously no Embiid, no Simmons, no Richardson here. We kind of joked a little bit about Shake Milton, but he's 6,300 now on DK. They're getting ahead of this one. What do you want to do? He dropped 39 points against the Clips.
I struggle with situations like this so much, because would you have told me that I'd ever play a $6,300 Shake Milton this year? Like, and I would have been like, yeah, I'd consider it. Like, no, but the price is a little scary. The matchup isn't anything special, but like they lost Josh Richardson now. Like they just don't. He was already playing the point guard position with Simmons out. He's gonna have to play big minutes again. He's gonna have to take plenty of shots again, especially because like Tobias is gonna shoot, but then who else creates for like?
Yeah, it's not gonna be Halzino Neto. It's not gonna be, well, maybe a little bit Alec Burks. Maybe
I think all the shots are gonna come from Tobias, Burks, Milton and Korkmaz, and like Al Horford's not going to just suddenly take 20 shots. Like that's not his style. So
Yeah, Mike Scott won't be on the court long enough to take
right,
shots. Well, let me rephrase that. He'll shoot when he's on the court. He just won't
yeah,
play more than 15 minutes.
he'll take 7 shots in 15 minutes. But I don't think we can just immediately X amount of our player pool just because the price is up. Now you can make the argument that you can just say, okay, with Richardson out, maybe you just go down to Alec Burks at 4,400. The usage won't be as high, but he's going to play, I don't know, 27 to 30 minutes, I would say. And he's not afraid. He's always been maybe I'll take that back. Like he won't touch the ball as much, but Alec Burks has always been a high usage player. So maybe this is a spot where he takes advantage of these guys being out. The Sixers are weird on this slate. Like this game's kind of weird too, because if we get Anthony Davis out, then a
I'm
lot of star power is missing.
Yeah, so we have the over under here, and it is Lakers by 11 and a half. Now it's hard to read into that
Right.
if we think Davis is going to be in or out, because you're missing three of the starters for Philadelphia, so they're literally imploding in front of our eyes. But to me, it would seem like if you want to give Davis another night off, this would be the place to do it.
Yeah. And if that happens, I mean, what
It's
do you
all
do
the
with LeBron?
LeBron all the
Because
time, yeah.
it's 11-4, and it's in a game where we thought the Clippers could have blew out the Sixers last, but again, I don't think people expected Shake Milton to hit his first like 7 threes
Yeah.
and keep that game competitive. But and when LeBron's just been ridiculous, with no Joel Embiid at the rim, with no Ben Simmons at the perimeter, like it's just obviously his team's going to be much worse defensively. Ben Simmons, if he didn't get hurt, in my opinion, I would have. I mean, I don't have a vote because I'm a nobody, but I would have voted him defensive player of the year. I think he's been that good. He won't be there. Embiid won't be protecting the rim, so LeBron should be able to do whatever he wants, kind of regardless. And we know the usage and the fantasy production is just insane with Anthony Davis off the court. Kyle Kuzma actually had a solid game the other night. And then JaVale McGee would benefit if Anthony Davis is out too.
Yeah, for me, it's LeBron. Really, only if Davis is out, because we
Yeah.
got some aggressive pricing here. He's 11-4 on DK. I'm just calling up the other side. Still 10-5 on FanDuel, so he's fine there. That's about normal. And 52 on Yahoo's completely fine. But it's kind of hard to pay that amount if Davis is going to play. I'd rather take the $1,500 discount to Davis for almost identical production, because you got to figure if he's going to play his usual minutes. But then it runs into the, if both these guys are playing, how long is Philly going to stay in the game? Who knows? So a lot of decision points there on the old decision tree. Anything else you want to call out from our final game here?
I'll just mention if Davis does sit, I have no problem going back to JaVale McGee at 3,800. He has a 35% rebounding rate with Davis off the floor this year and over 1.2 fantasy points per minute. And you don't have to worry about foul trouble with no Joel Embiid in there. Or at least you shouldn't.
Very true. Very true. All right, let's see. What fun can I remind you guys of? Oh, yeah, if you want to do a rate and review of the podcast, we're still running the promotion where we are collecting all of them from each of the different sites and doing one drawing per day for, I think it's a month of premium content or premium access. So all you got to do is leave a 5-star rating. Come on, don't shortchange us. The only thing 3-star is vodka. So leave a 5-star rating. Put your Twitter handle or your Osmo username in your review, and we will be able to connect with you if you end up being the winner. We're also going to run the Fred Van Elite contest. Remember, I don't have to play him if he's ruled out. I just have to play his direct backup. If you guys win that contest and you have an Osmo avatar, you get 30 free days of Osmo premium content. We had somebody win that on Sunday. Final thoughts, Adam. How was your first time here on the Early Bird podcast?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was assuming not as nerve-wracking as other people's first podcast, because like we talked about, I've been doing podcasts for a long time, and I'm going to be doing another one in about 10 minutes. So I always appreciate the opportunity and love talking sports, and have had quite the good time since joining Osmo. And you can find my article. My article will be Tuesdays and Thursdays, which means I'll be writing about this slate at osmo.com tomorrow.
Excellent. And what is your Twitter handle if people want to give you a follow?
You can follow me at Pfeifer24. I'll be the one giving false hope about the Cleveland Cavaliers and Buffalo. Actually, Buffalo Bills. we have a promising future in Buffalo.
Oh, good
So
God, Cleveland! Who's your baseball team that you root for?
So yeah, I'm all over the place real quick. Didn't have a favorite basketball team. I was born in upstate New York, which is why I'm a Bills fan.
Okay, that makes
And
sense.
a Syracuse basketball fan. That
Okay.
part makes sense. And then when I was 2 or 3, I moved down to Pennsylvania. Didn't have a favorite basketball team. And 2002, 2001, when he was right before he entered the league, I started watching this guy by the name of LeBron James. Kind of fell in love with him and was a Cavs fan ever since. So and if anybody wants to call me a front runner, I have multiple jerseys in my closet, aka a Deion Waiters jersey.
Oh,
Yeah, I have that. I do have multiple Kyrie Irving jerseys, so that's why I'm a Cavs fan. And then for baseball and hockey, I just kind of support the hometown team, so Phillies and Flyers, but
gotcha.
not diehard fans like I am for Buffalo and Cleveland.
Yeah, I will say there you do have hope. I root for two baseball teams, the Mariners and the Washington Nationals. Grew up in state of Washington. Actually went to the
There you
first
go.
Mariners game.
Ken
Uh,
Griffey Jr., by the way, my favorite athlete of all time, so I'm
yeah,
on board.
oh, he was something else. But then I moved out here to the DC area. I recognized bad baseball, but I could watch it 3 hours earlier, so I became a Nationals fan. Then I learned the fact that not only had neither team never won a World Series, they'd never been to a World Series. I can't say that anymore because the
Yeah.
Nationals obviously did win, but my Mariners are making up for it. They have not made the playoffs since 2002. So.
I mean, I was in the same boat with Buffalo until they started making the playoffs, and then I broke everything in my basement when they blew that lead against the Texans. So, but they got a lot of cap and they have a promising future. So who knows? I was a mess when the Cavs won in 2016, but if the Bills were ever to win a Super Bowl, I would be just like there's a hole in my old wall, my old bedroom wall from my brother punching the wall after the Music City Miracle.
Very
So
nice. Well, you know what? You haven't really become what do you say, a true teenage dude until you've joined the hole in the wall game. So, I put a hole in the wall at my parents' house one time as well, out of anger,
yeah, it
I don't ever
happens.
get angry, but man, I guess I snapped at that point. So. That was 30 years ago, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. But they still like to bring it up since I normally am usually pretty good natured. So, but there we are. The interesting fact I had thought about in a long time. But with that, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow me at EMacDFS. It is osmo_.com on the Twitter sphere. Good luck, gamers.